Come here, sweetheart. You look lost, and women who wander into my alley don't always walk back out.
Back up. I'm giving you one chance to walk away while you still can.
Oh, we've got ourselves a tough one. You hear that? She actually thinks she's in control.
Touch me again, and you're going to regret making it personal.
Marcus walked in slow, grabbed Alicia's chin, and lifted her face toward his. She didn't pull back. The biker behind her locked both hands around her wrists as the others blocked the alley. Marcus smiled.
Nobody is coming, sweetheart. We tear up uniforms here and leave the pieces in the gutter.
Alicia only stared back. Marcus Doyle had no idea he had cornered an ex-Marine who had survived worse men in worse places. Before continuing, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you can't miss. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows between the brick buildings as Sergeant Alicia Brooks walked through the Riverfront Industrial District. Her black uniform was crisp despite the humid air that clung to the old warehouses. The youth outreach event had run longer than expected, but seeing those kids smile made every extra minute worth it. She turned into a narrow service alley between two abandoned buildings, choosing the shortcut she'd used dozens of times before. Puddles from yesterday's rain reflected the dying light. The brick walls rose high on both sides, creating a canyon of red and shadow. Something felt wrong. Alicia's steps slowed. Her Marine training had taught her to trust that feeling in her gut, the kind of silence that wasn't really silence, the way the air seemed to hold its breath. Then she heard them. Motorcycle, engines idling low and mean. 3 bikes sat near the far end of the alley, chrome gleaming in the shadows. Water dripped from their exhaust pipes into the puddles below. The iron vultures. She recognized the skull and wings painted on their gas tanks. Men stepped out from behind dumpsters and doorways, big men in leather jackets with patches covering their backs. They moved with the lazy confidence of predators who knew their prey couldn't run. Alicia kept walking forward. Her face stayed calm. Her hands remained loose at her sides. "Well, well," a voice boomed from ahead. "Look what we got here." Marcus Doyle emerged from the shadows like a mountain coming to life, 6'4" and built like a truck, with arms covered in tattoos that told stories of violence and prison time. His beard was streaked with gray, but his eyes burned with the cruel intelligence of a man who had turned intimidation into an art form. "Afternoon," Alicia said, her voice steady. Marcus grinned, showing teeth that had seen too many fights. "Afternoon? That's it? No. How you doing, sir? Or nice day, isn't it?" He stepped closer, his boots splashing in a puddle. "Where are your manners, sweetheart?" The bikers closed in from all sides. Alicia counted them without moving her head. 7 men. No visible weapons yet, but she spotted the bulge of knives under jackets. 2 exit routes, the way she came and the far end where the motorcycles waited. Both blocked now. "Cat got your tongue?" Marcus circled her like a shark. "Or maybe you just don't talk to our kind of people." A massive biker with a scarred face moved behind her. Rafe Kellen. She recognized him from wanted posters. His hands clamped down on her wrists, pinning her arms to her sides. "There we go," Marcus said. "Much better." The other bikers laughed, cruel sounds that echoed off the brick walls. Marcus reached out and lifted her chin with one thick finger. His touch was gentle, mocking. "Come here, sweetheart. Let's have a proper conversation." Alicia looked directly into his eyes. She didn't flinch, didn't pull away. Her breathing stayed controlled. "See, the thing is," Marcus continued, his voice dropping to a preacher's whisper, "around here, we own this street. We own these blocks. We own everything you can see." He gestured with his free hand. "And the city sends the wrong kind of cop into our neighborhood." The bikers erupted in laughter again. One of them, a skinny man with gold teeth, shook his head. "They really thought this little girl could handle us?" "Look at that badge," another one called out. "Sergeant? They gave her sergeant stripes?" He spat into the puddle. "What's next? They gonna make her chief?" Marcus's finger traced along her jawline. "You know what I think? I think someone made a mistake. I think they forgot to tell you that certain parts of this city ain't for certain kinds of people." Alicia's mind worked like a machine. 7 men. Marcus directly in front. Rafe behind her. grip loose but ready to tighten. 5 others spread in a semicircle. The nearest exit 23 steps away. Too far. Without moving her body, she pressed a small button on her chest. Hidden inside her body camera, a covert recorder activated. Every word would now be transmitted and stored. "Nothing to say?" Marcus asked. "That's disappointing. Usually, when we corner one of you badge-wearing heroes, they got plenty to say. Begging, mostly." He leaned closer. His breath smelled like cigarettes and beer. "But you're different, aren't you? You got that military look. Think that training's gonna help you here?" The bikers moved closer, a tightening circle of leather and muscle. "See, sweetheart," Marcus said, his voice getting louder, more confident. "This whole neighborhood belongs to us. Has for months. Every shop pays us. Every family knows our rules. Even half the cops know better than to mess with the iron vultures." One biker kicked at the water. "She's probably recording this." Marcus laughed. "Let her record. You think anyone's gonna prosecute us? You think any jury's gonna convict the iron vultures?" He spread his arms wide. "We got friends, darling. Important friends. City hall friends. Police station friends." His hand moved to her shoulder, gripping the radio clipped there. "But just to be safe," Marcus said, "let's make sure you can't call for backup." With one violent motion, he ripped the radio from her shoulder. The clip snapped. The device flew through the air and splashed into a puddle near the wall. Marcus grinned as the radio sparked and went silent in the dirty water. "There," he said. "Now you're all alone." The laughter around her shifted. What had been cruel amusement became something darker. Marcus stepped back, his grin turning predatory. "You know what?" he said, rolling his shoulders. "I don't think this lady understands respect yet." The bikers spread out wider. Their postures changed from casual to hunting stance. Alicia felt Rafe's grip tighten on her wrists. "Maybe we need to teach her," Marcus continued, his voice carrying the authority of a man used to giving orders. "Show her how things work in our neighborhood." A biker with snake tattoos wrapped around his neck cracked his knuckles. "Been a while since we had a cop to play with." "Easy, boys," Marcus said, raising one hand. "Let's not get too rough. Just enough to make sure she remembers this conversation." Alicia counted heartbeats. Her breathing stayed controlled. In her peripheral vision, she watched the biker with gold teeth shift his weight to his left foot, ready to strike. "You hear that, sweetheart?" Marcus asked. "We're going to be real gentle. Just a little reminder about respect." The gold-toothed biker took a half step forward, his right hand clenched into a fist. "Do it," Marcus ordered. The punch came fast and hard, aimed at her ribs. Alicia exploded. Her right boot slammed down on Rafe's instep with crushing force. She felt bones crack through his leather boot. His scream tore through the alley as his grip vanished. Before he could recover, her elbow drove backward into his throat like a piston. Rafe dropped, gasping and clutching his neck. The gold-toothed biker's punch was still coming. Alicia pivoted on her left foot, letting his fist whistle past her shoulder. Her forearm came up in a tight rotation, catching him across the jaw. The impact snapped his head sideways. Gold teeth scattered across wet pavement as he crumpled. "You crazy!" Marcus lunged forward, hands reaching for her throat. Alicia dropped low, driving her shoulder into his stomach. Her legs pumped like pistons, carrying them both backward until Marcus slammed into the brick wall. Air exploded from his lungs in a harsh grunt. The snake-tattooed biker pulled a knife from his jacket. Steel flashed in the dim light as the blade cleared its sheath. Alicia was already moving. She grabbed his wrist before the knife reached striking position, twisting hard. The biker screamed as tendons popped. His own momentum carried him forward as Alicia stepped aside. His face met the corner of a rusted dumpster with a wet crack. The remaining bikers hesitated. 3 of their brothers were down in under 10 seconds. "Kill her!" Marcus roared, blood streaming from his nose where it had hit the wall. A biker with a shaved head charged from her right, swinging a chain. Alicia ducked under the arc, grabbed his jacket, and used his forward motion to slam him face first into the brick wall. The chain clattered to the ground as he slid down, leaving a dark smear on the bricks. Another biker tried to grab her from behind. Alicia spun, her boot catching him in the knee. The joint bent backward with a sound like breaking wood. He went down screaming, clutching his ruined leg. 2 bikers remained standing. They looked at their fallen brothers, then at Alicia. Her uniform was torn at the shoulder where Marcus had grabbed her radio, but she wasn't breathing hard. Marcus pushed himself off the wall, wiping blood from his mouth. "You think this is over?" he snarled. "You think—" In the distance, sirens wailed, growing closer. "Boss," one of the standing bikers said, his voice tight with fear. "We gotta go. Now." Marcus's eyes burned with rage, but he wasn't stupid. "This ain't finished," he told Alicia. "Not even close." He grabbed the arm of the biker with the broken knee, hauling him toward the motorcycles. "Move, all of you!" The bikers scrambled to collect their wounded. Engines roared to life. Marcus threw one last look at Alicia before gunning his bike down the alley. Alicia stood alone among scattered teeth and spreading blood. She pulled out her phone, then noticed something glinting near the dumpster. A burner phone, cracked but intact, had fallen from one of the biker's pockets. Next to it lay a torn patch from an iron vulture's jacket. Black leather with a red vulture, but what caught her attention was the number stamped below the bird. Terminal 9. She pocketed both items as the sirens grew louder. The fluorescent lights in interview room 3 cast harsh shadows across the metal table. Alicia sat straight-backed in the plastic chair, her torn uniform cleaned up as much as possible. Captain Miriam Cole sat across from her, a digital recorder between them and a yellow legal pad covered in neat handwriting. "Start from the beginning," Captain Cole said. Her voice was steady, professional. "What brought you to Industrial Boulevard at 4:30 p.m.? "I finished the community outreach event at Riverside Elementary," Alicia said. "Parents asking about bike safety, crossing guards, usual stuff. Event ended at 4:15. I was heading back to the station." "Your usual route?" "No, ma'am. I normally take Harbor Street to avoid construction traffic, but dispatch redirected me through the industrial district. Said there were reports of suspicious activity that needed checking." Captain Cole made a note. "You received this redirect over radio?" "Affirmative. Around 4:25. Voice I didn't recognize, but the call sign checked out." "Continue." Alicia walked through every detail. The bikers surrounding her. Marcus Doyle's threats. The recording device activation. The assault that forced her to defend herself. Her voice stayed level, factual, no emotion bleeding through. "After they fled, I secured these items from the scene." Alicia placed the cracked burner phone on the table, followed by the torn iron vulture's patch. Terminal 9 designation on the patch. Phone might contain contacts or messages. Captain Cole examined both items. "Good work preserving evidence. Your body camera?" Alicia unclipped the device from her vest. "Recording started the moment I activated emergency protocol. Should have the full encounter." A knock interrupted them. Officer Samuel Ortiz stepped inside, his young face tight with concern. "Captain?" Tex finished the preliminary review. "And?" Samuel's eyes flicked to Alicia, then back to the captain. "Audio file is clean. Every word, every threat, crystal clear. But the video—" He paused. "Main video file is corrupted. Won't play past the first 30 seconds. The room went cold. Captain Cole set down her pen. "Corrupted how?" "Tech says it looks like electromagnetic interference. Could be equipment malfunction, but—" Samuel shifted his weight. "Timing's strange, ma'am. Audio works perfect. Video fails right when things get interesting." Alicia felt something twist in her stomach. Professional equipment doesn't fail that conveniently. "There's something else," Samuel continued. "Marcus Doyle filed a complaint an hour ago. Claims Sergeant Brooks attacked him and 5 other men without provocation. Says they were just talking to her about directions." "Directions?" Captain Cole repeated, her tone flat. "He's claiming they were unarmed civilians having a conversation when she went crazy and started beating people up. Filed through his lawyer downtown. Full media statement calling for her suspension." The silence stretched. Alicia stared at the cracked phone on the table. Marcus had moved fast. Too fast. "Samuel," Captain Cole said quietly, "run the dispatch logs for Sergeant Brooks's route change." "Already did, ma'am." Samuel glanced around, then lowered his voice. "Command override came from headquarters. Call sign was legitimate, but there's no incident report listing why she needed redirecting. No supervisor signed off on it. Just a route change with no explanation." Captain Cole's knuckles went white where she gripped her pen. "Someone sent her into that alley." Alicia's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, then answered. Brooks. Sergeant Brooks? This is Grace Holloway, Channel 7 News. I'm hearing chatter about an incident today involving motorcycle gang members. Mind if I ask a few questions? I can't comment on ongoing. I'm not looking for details about what happened, Grace interrupted. But I talked to a warehouse owner near Industrial Boulevard. Says he's got security cameras facing the street. Might have caught something. You interested? Alicia looked at Captain Cole, who nodded. Where can we meet? I'll call you back in an hour. Still tracking down the footage. The line went dead. Captain Cole was already reaching for her radio when another knock came. This time, a sergeant from Internal Affairs stepped through the door. Captain Cole, I need to speak with Sergeant Brooks. We're opening a force review effective immediately. Alicia's apartment building looked exactly the same as always. Same cracked sidewalk, same rusted mailboxes, same flickering security light over the entrance. She climbed to the third floor, keys ready. A piece of paper was taped to her door, grease-stained and torn at the edges. Block letters written in black marker. Stay out of our streets. Alicia pulled the note free, studying the handwriting. Heavy strokes, angry pressure. She unlocked her door and stepped inside, then double-checked every lock behind her. Dawn crept over the industrial district like smoke through broken glass. The morning air carried the smell of oil, rust, and river water as Alicia parked her patrol car beside a chain-link fence topped with razor wire. Grace's sedan pulled up behind her, followed by Nathan's pickup truck. Ruiz's auto sat hunched between two empty lots like a wounded animal. Paint peeled from its corrugated metal walls. Windows were barred with thick steel mesh. A hand-painted sign hung crooked above the office door. This is it, Grace said, stepping out with her recorder. Elena agreed to meet, but she's scared. Nathan scanned the empty street with military precision. Good sight lines from the river road, easy escape routes. Bad place for an ambush. Alicia checked her body camera and backup recorder. If she talks, we need every word. The shop's office door opened with a rusty screech. Elena Ruiz emerged slowly, wiping grease from her hands with a stained rag. She was small but strong, with calloused fingers and worried eyes that darted between her visitors and the street. You came, Elena said quietly. I wasn't sure. Thank you for trusting us, Alicia replied. We know this isn't easy. Elena led them inside. The office smelled like motor oil and fear. Her teenage son, Miguel, sat behind the counter doing homework. He looked up with his mother's cautious eyes. Miguel, go check the parts inventory, Elena said gently. The boy gathered his books and disappeared into the shop. Elena waited until his footsteps faded before speaking. They come every Tuesday, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. The Iron Vultures, 3 of them, always the same ones. They collect $200 from me, $400 from Martinez Grocery, $600 from the laundromat. Grace leaned forward. How long has this been going on? 2 years, maybe more. Elena's hands trembled as she poured coffee from a dented pot. They say it's protection money. Protection from what? From them. Alicia kept her voice calm. Have you seen them do anything else? Elena nodded slowly. Late at night. Sometimes I work late fixing engines. I see trucks coming through the old shipping district. Big trucks with no markings. The bikers escort them, like guards. What kind of trucks? Nathan asked. Moving trucks, shipping containers on flatbeds, always after midnight. Elena's voice dropped even lower. They carry sealed crates, heavy ones. Takes 4 men to lift each crate. Grace activated her recorder. Did you ever see who was directing the operation? Elena hesitated, then reached into a desk drawer. She pulled out a crumpled photograph. I took this with my phone 3 weeks ago, through the back window. The image was grainy, but clear enough. Marcus Doyle stood beside a black sedan, talking to a tall man in an expensive suit. The suited man's face was visible in the streetlight. Alicia studied the photo. Do you recognize him? Councilman Pike, Elena whispered. Everett Pike. He comes on television talking about cleaning up the neighborhood, but he was here, behind my shop, shaking hands with gang members at 2 in the morning. Nathan photographed Elena's phone with his own camera. What were they discussing? I couldn't hear everything, but Pike was angry about something. He kept pointing toward the waterfront and saying schedules were changing. Elena wrapped her arms around herself. Marcus laughed and said nobody would interfere. Grace exchanged glances with Alicia. Have you seen Pike here before? Twice. Always at night. Always with the gang. Elena's voice cracked. I have a son. I can't testify in court. They'll kill us both. Alicia reached across the desk. We won't let that happen. You can't promise that, Elena said bitterly. The police don't protect people like me. Half of them work for the gangs anyway. Before Alicia could respond, the roar of motorcycle engines shattered the morning quiet. 2 bikes screamed past the shop. Riders hunched low over their handlebars. Glass exploded inward as a bottle crashed through the front window. Clear liquid splashed across the floor, followed by the smell of gasoline. Get down, Nathan shouted. Flames erupted across the office like hungry animals. Fire raced up the walls and across the ceiling with terrifying speed. Smoke filled the room in seconds. Miguel! Elena screamed, trying to run toward the shop. Alicia grabbed her arm. Where is he? Parts room. In the back. Nathan grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall and began spraying foam at the advancing flames. Go! I'll hold the fire. Alicia plunged through the smoke-filled doorway into the shop. Heat pressed against her like a living thing. She could barely see through the thick gray clouds. Miguel! She called. Miguel, where are you? A cough echoed from somewhere ahead. Alicia followed the sound, staying low beneath the worst smoke. She found the teenager huddled behind a stack of tires, coughing violently. Come on! Alicia lifted him to his feet. We're getting out. She half-carried, half-dragged Miguel through the burning shop toward the office. The heat was unbearable now. Flames licked at the walls and ceiling like orange tongues. In the office, Elena fought Nathan's grip, trying to run back for her son. Miguel, my baby, I've got him! Alicia burst through the smoke, supporting the coughing teenager. He's okay. Nathan sprayed the last of his extinguisher at the flames, but they kept spreading. We need to move, now. They stumbled out into the morning air. Miguel collapsed on the asphalt, coughing up smoke. Elena dropped beside him, checking for injuries with shaking hands. Alicia spun toward the street just as the 2 motorcycles roared around a distant corner. She caught a glimpse of the rear license plate on the second bike before both riders disappeared. 7 Charlie 947, she muttered, memorizing the number. Fire sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder, but another sound cut through the noise. A black sedan pulled up to the curb with official plates. Deputy Chief Leonard Voss stepped out, his uniform crisp despite the early hour. He surveyed the burning shop with cold eyes before walking straight to Alicia. Sergeant Brooks, he said, his voice flat and dangerous. Funny how violence seems to follow you around. This wasn't my fault, Alicia replied evenly. Isn't it? Voss gestured toward the flames. You came here asking questions, stirring up trouble, and now an innocent family's business is destroyed. Grace stepped forward with her recorder still running. Deputy Chief, this was clearly arson. The gang. The gang? Voss cut her off with a bitter laugh. What gang? All I see is property damage after Sergeant Brooks decided to conduct unauthorized interviews. Elena struggled to her feet, still supporting Miguel. They threw something through the window. The bikers? Ma'am, you're in shock, Voss said dismissively. You probably saw shadows and assumed the worst. Alicia felt rage building in her chest, but she kept her voice controlled. I saw the motorcycles. I have the license plate. From a distance, through smoke, while under stress. Voss shook his head. Hardly reliable testimony? Fire trucks rounded the corner, followed by an ambulance and 2 patrol cars. Firefighters immediately began connecting hoses to nearby hydrants. Voss pulled a folded paper from his jacket. Sergeant Brooks, you are hereby suspended from active duty pending a full investigation into your recent conduct. Badge and weapon, please. The words hit Alicia like physical blows. You can't be serious. Deadly serious. Voss held out his hand. Your reckless behavior has endangered civilian lives and destroyed private property. Until Internal Affairs completes their review, you are relieved of all police duties. Nathan stepped closer to Alicia, his face hard. This is a setup. Sir, I suggest you step back before you're charged with interfering with a police investigation. Voss never took his eyes off Alicia. Badge and weapon. Now. Alicia's hands shook as she unpinned her badge and unholstered her service weapon. Every motion felt like surrender. She placed both items in Voss's waiting palm. You have 48 hours to clean out your locker. Voss continued. Until then, you are forbidden from entering any police facility or representing yourself as a law enforcement officer. He turned to Elena and Miguel. Ma'am, I suggest you think very carefully before making any wild accusations about motorcycle gangs. Sometimes insurance investigations turn up interesting facts about business owners who might need money. The threat was barely disguised. Elena's face went white. Voss climbed back into his sedan and drove away, leaving Alicia standing in the street as flames consumed the auto shop behind her. As black smoke rose toward the morning sky, one terrible truth became crystal clear. The gang wasn't just protected. They were protected at the highest levels. The marina smelled like salt and diesel fuel. Alicia climbed the narrow stairs to Nathan's workshop, her body still aching from the morning's chaos. The suspension felt like a weight pressing down on her chest. Nathan's workspace occupied the second floor of an old storage unit overlooking the harbor. Fishing nets hung from the rafters. Marine electronics covered every workbench. Tools lined the walls in perfect military order. Grace sat at a small table, her laptop open beside stacks of printed documents. She looked up as Alicia entered. "How are you holding up?" "Been better." Alicia sank into a metal chair. "But I'm not done." Nathan emerged from behind a bank of radio equipment, holding the damaged burner phone they'd recovered from the warehouse. "Good, because I've got something." He placed the phone on the workbench and connected it to a small device with blinking lights. Water damage destroyed most of the memory, but I managed to pull some fragments. The device hummed quietly as data scrolled across a tiny screen. Nathan pointed to specific lines of code. "These look like delivery schedules, times and locations." Alicia leaned forward. "What kind of deliveries?" "Can't tell for sure, but look at this." Nathan highlighted a series of numbers. "These match warehouse addresses along the riverfront, and this symbol keeps appearing." He showed them a simple logo that looked like overlapping triangles. "Every entry has this mark." Grace suddenly straightened. "I've seen that before." She flipped through her printed pages frantically. "Here, Rivergate Shipping uses that logo on their invoices." "Rivergate?" Alicia studied the symbol more carefully. "Major shipping company. They handle cargo containers through the Port Authority." Grace pulled up files on her laptop. "I've been tracking their business connections for weeks. Guess whose campaign they donated $50,000 to last year?" Nathan raised an eyebrow. "Who?" "Councilman Everett Pike." Grace turned the screen toward them. "Same Pike who sits on the Harbor Development Committee. Same Pike who approves shipping contracts for the city." The pieces started clicking together in Alicia's mind. So the Iron Vultures aren't just running protection rackets. They're moving cargo. "Through Pike's connections," Nathan added grimly. Grace scrolled through more documents. "Pike's been pushing legislation to reduce inspections at the port. Claims it's for economic development." Alicia felt the familiar fire building in her chest. But without her badge, she couldn't act on any of this. "We need someone with federal authority." "I might know someone." Nathan pulled out his phone. "FBI agent Dana Whitaker. She's been tracking motorcycle gangs connected to smuggling operations. If we bring her solid evidence—" "Evidence we don't have yet," Alicia pointed out. Grace held up the license plate number Alicia had memorized from the firebombing. "We have this, 7 Charlie 947. Nathan was already typing the number into a database on his computer. "Registered to a Marcus Doyle. Address shows a garage near the freight rail yards." Alicia stood up, energy returning to her movements. "Then that's where I'm going." "Alicia, you're suspended," Grace reminded her. "If you get caught, I won't get caught." Alicia's voice carried the quiet confidence of a Marine planning a mission. "I'm not going as a cop. I'm going as a citizen investigating arson against an innocent family." Nathan nodded slowly. "I'll have the truck ready if you need backup." "Stay close to the radio," Alicia said, "but don't come in unless I call." 20 minutes later, Alicia crouched behind a stack of shipping containers near the freight tracks. The garage sat in an industrial wasteland of rusted rail cars and abandoned buildings. 2 motorcycles were parked outside, including the one with plates 7 Charlie 947. She studied the building through binoculars Nathan had loaned her. 1 entrance, 2 windows, a loading bay big enough for trucks. The perfect place to hide stolen cars or smuggled cargo. Alicia waited until the street stayed empty for 5 full minutes. Then she moved. The side window was cracked open just enough for her fingers. She carefully pushed it wider and slipped inside, landing silently on a concrete floor covered in oil stains. The garage was bigger than it looked from outside. Half-assembled motorcycles filled one side. Car parts covered metal shelving, and in the back corner, wooden crates were stacked beside a workbench covered in paperwork. Alicia crept toward the papers, staying in the shadows. She could hear voices from somewhere deeper in the building, but they sounded distant. The workbench held invoices, shipping manifests, and what looked like a ledger page with handwritten entries. She recognized the Rivergate logo immediately. "What are you doing in here?" Alicia spun around. Two men stood in the doorway, one tall and thin, the other built like a refrigerator. Both wore iron vulture patches on their leather vests. "Well, well," the thin one sneered. "Look what we caught snooping around." The big man cracked his knuckles. "Marcus is gonna love this." There was no time for negotiation. The thin biker lunged forward, reaching for her arms. Alicia sidestepped and drove her elbow into his ribs. He doubled over, gasping. The big man charged like an angry bull. Alicia grabbed his wrist and used his momentum to slam his hand against the edge of the workbench. The crack of breaking bone echoed through the garage. He screamed and stumbled backward. Alicia followed up with a sharp knee to his ribs that dropped him to the concrete floor. The thin biker had recovered enough to grab a wrench from the workbench. He swung it at her head. Alicia ducked and swept his legs, sending him crashing into a stack of car parts. She snatched the ledger page and a shipping manifest from the workbench just as motorcycle engines roared to life outside. More bikers were coming. Alicia ran for the window she'd entered through. Behind her, the thin biker was struggling to his feet, reaching for a radio. She dove through the window as the garage's main door burst open. Angry shouts filled the air behind her. Nathan's truck was waiting 3 blocks away, engine running. Alicia threw herself into the passenger seat, breathing hard and bleeding from a cut on her cheek. "Go! Go! Go!" Nathan hit the gas as motorcycles appeared in the rearview mirror, but the truck had too much of a head start. The bikers quickly fell behind. "You get anything?" Nathan asked. Alicia held up the stolen papers, smiling despite the blood on her face. "Oh yeah, I got something." The shipping manifest showed cargo deliveries between Rivergate Shipping and offshore companies. The ledger page contained payment records with initials instead of names. But it was the amounts that made Alicia's blood run cold. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, flowing from Rivergate to sets of initials that any honest officer would immediately recognize. EPLVMD Everett Pike, Leonard Voss, Marcus Doyle. The corruption reached higher than they'd imagined. By noon, Nathan's workshop had become a war room. Ledger pages, map pins, and printouts spread across a stained wooden table that usually held engine parts and coffee-stained manual. The overhead fluorescent light buzzed and flickered, casting harsh shadows over the evidence that could bring down half the city government. Alicia sat in a folding chair, her cut cheek cleaned and bandaged. The stolen documents lay in neat piles before her, each one a piece of a puzzle that kept getting bigger and uglier. Nathan stood at a corkboard, connecting red string between photographs and addresses. "Look at this pattern," he said, tapping the board with a pencil. "Every payment in that ledger matches up with a business fire, or witness disappearance." Grace hunched over her laptop, cross-referencing names and dates. "The timing is perfect, too perfect. Someone coordinated all of this." The workshop door opened with a sharp creak. FBI agent Dana Whitaker stepped inside, her dark suit looking out of place among the grease-stained tools and spare motorcycle parts. "Brooks," she said, nodding at Alicia. "I got your message." Alicia pointed to the ledger page on the table. "Those initials you wanted to see." Dana picked up the paper and studied it carefully. Her expression grew darker with each line she read. After a long moment, she set it down and looked directly at Alicia. "This is explosive," Dana said. "LV is Deputy Chief Leonard Voss. He's been with the department for 23 years. Decorated, respected, clean record." "Not anymore," Alicia said. "And EP is Councilman Everett Pike," Dana continued. "He chairs the Public Safety Committee, the one that approves police budgets and contracts." Nathan whistled low. No wonder the gang felt untouchable. Dana pulled out a chair and sat down. "Walk me through everything again, step by step." Alicia spread the papers across the table. The ledger shows payments going out every month, always the same amounts, always to the same initials. And look at these notes in the margins. She pointed to handwritten entries beside the payment records. Route corrections, patrol adjustment, evidence delays. That matches what Officer Ortiz told me, Alicia said. Someone changed my patrol route just before the ambush. As if summoned by his name, Samuel Ortiz appeared in the doorway. He looked nervous, glancing over his shoulder before stepping inside. "I can't stay long," he said. "I'm supposed to be getting lunch." He pulled a folded paper from his jacket pocket. "Dispatch record from the day you were attacked. I made a copy before anyone could mess with it." Dana took the paper and examined it closely. "This shows your original route was changed at 2:15 p.m. The ambush happened at 2:45. "Someone knew exactly where to send me," Alicia said, anger rising in her voice. "They set me up like a bowling pin." Samuel shifted uncomfortably. "There's more. I've been watching the dispatch logs since then. Every time someone reports Iron Vulture activity, the response gets delayed or rerouted." "How many officers know about the route changes?" Dana asked. "Only supervisors can alter patrol assignments," Samuel said. "Sergeants and above." Dana nodded grimly. "So we're looking at corruption in the command structure." Grace looked up from her laptop. "I found something else. These offshore companies receiving payments from Rivergate, 3 of them are shell corporations. No real business operation, just bank accounts." "Money laundering," Nathan said. "On a massive scale," Dana agreed. She stood up and began pacing the small workshop. "We've got extortion, arson, witness intimidation, and now police coordination. This is a federal case." Alicia leaned forward. "What do you need for warrants?" "More than scandal," Dana said. "I need proof of specific crimes, documented payments, recorded conversations, something that will hold up in court." "What about Elena Ruiz?" Alicia asked. "She's still out there, still a target." Dana nodded. "We need to move her to protective custody. Tonight, if possible." Samuel spoke up quietly. "I can help with that. My shift ends at 6. I could pick her up during a routine patrol check." "Too risky," Dana said. "If they're monitoring dispatch, they'll know." "Not if I don't use the radio," Samuel said. "I'll say I'm responding to a noise complaint. Happens all the time in that neighborhood." Alicia studied the young officer's face. He was scared, but determined. The kind of cop the department needed more of. "Can you handle it if things go wrong?" she asked. Samuel's jaw tightened. "Ma'am, I didn't become a police officer to protect criminals. Elena Ruiz deserves better than living in fear." Dana pulled out her phone. "I'll coordinate with the safe house. We move tonight." For the first time since the alley ambush, Alicia felt momentum shifting in their favor. The conspiracy was bigger than anyone had imagined, but it was also more vulnerable. Every corrupt official, every dirty payment, every falsified report had left traces. The Iron Vultures thought they owned the city. They were about to learn the difference between fear and respect. Dana gathered up the ledger pages and headed for the door. "I'm starting the federal paperwork. These warrants will take time, but when they come through, we're going to tear this whole thing apart." As the FBI agent left, Grace continued scrolling through documents on her laptop. Suddenly, she stopped and leaned closer to the screen. "Wait," she said, her voice tight with surprise. "Alicia, look at this." She pointed to an old invoice buried in the ledger, one they had not examined closely before. The header bore a company name that made Alicia's blood turn to ice water. Brooks Marine Hauling. Alicia stared at the paper, her hands beginning to shake. That was her father's company, the small shipping business Curtis Brooks had run before his death. The name she had not heard spoken. Alicia's hands trembled as she held the invoice. The faded letterhead read, "Brooks Marine Hauling" in bold letters, with her father's signature scrawled at the bottom. The date was 3 weeks before Curtis Brooks died. "That's impossible," she whispered. "Dad never worked with Rivergate Shipping." Nathan moved closer, his weathered face grim. "Let me see that." He took the paper and studied it carefully. Then he walked to a metal filing cabinet in the corner of his workshop and pulled out a thick folder. "I've been collecting information on waterfront corruption for years," he said. "Your father's name came up more than once." Grace looked up from her laptop. "What kind of information?" Nathan spread several documents across his workbench: police reports, shipping manifests, and newspaper clippings, all from 7 years ago. Curtis Brooks was a good man, Nathan said. Former Marine, just like us. He ran a small hauling business, mostly legitimate cargo between the docks and local warehouses. Alicia stared at her father's photo in an old newspaper article. He looked younger, prouder. The headline read, "Local Veteran Expands Marine Hauling Business." He started noticing things, Nathan continued. Crates being moved through the docks after hours. Ships arriving without proper manifests. Workers who got paid in cash and asked no questions. Samuel leaned forward. What did he do? Nathan pulled out a manila envelope. Inside were black and white photographs, grainy but clear enough to show men loading unmarked crates from a cargo ship. The timestamp showed 2:15 a.m. Your father was smart, Nathan told Alicia. He documented everything: names, dates, license plates. He was building a case. Alicia's throat tightened. Why didn't he go to the police? He tried, Nathan said quietly. Filed 3 separate reports with the Harbor Patrol. They all disappeared. Grace scrolled through more files on her laptop. I'm seeing payments to Brooks Marine Hauling going back 8 months before Curtis died. Small amounts at first, then bigger ones. They tried to buy him, Alicia realized. When that didn't work, Nathan nodded grimly. The official report said mechanical failure. A winch cable snapped while he was loading cargo. Crushed him instantly. But you don't believe that, Samuel said. I examined the accident scene myself, Nathan replied. That cable was cut, not broken. Someone wanted Curtis Brooks dead. Alicia felt rage building in her chest, but she forced herself to stay calm. Who signed off on closing the investigation? Nathan handed her another document. The signature at the bottom made her stomach drop. Deputy Chief Leonard Voss. That rotten bastard, she whispered. Nathan walked to another workbench and picked up the burner phone they had recovered from the warehouse. Dana's tech people cracked this yesterday. There's audio we haven't heard yet. He pressed play. Marcus Doyle's voice filled the small workshop, rough and confident. The daughter got exactly the route we paid for. Same street where Daddy used to take pictures. Fitting, don't you think? Another voice responded, older and more careful. Just make sure it looks random. We can't afford another investigation. Relax, Marcus said. She'll learn what happens when Brooks family members stick their noses where they don't belong. The recording ended. The workshop fell silent except for the distant hum of traffic outside the marina. Alicia stared at the photos of her father, the shipping manifests, the falsified police reports. 7 years of believing his death was an accident. 7 years of grief over a random industrial mishap. It had all been murder. They killed him, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. They killed my father and made it look like an accident. Nathan placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Curtis was getting close to exposing the whole operation. The smuggling, the money laundering, the corrupt officials. They couldn't let him testify. And when I started investigating the Iron Vultures, Alicia said, pieces falling into place, they decided to finish what they started. Samuel shook his head in disgust. They set up the ambush to silence you, just like they silenced your father. Grace looked up from her laptop. There's more. I found shipping records showing Brooks Marine Hauling was supposed to transport a large cargo shipment the day after Curtis died. When he couldn't complete the job, it got rerouted through Rivergate Shipping. A $50,000 contract, Nathan added, reading over her shoulder. Alicia felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. The men who cornered her in that alley hadn't just attacked a police officer. They had targeted the daughter of a man they murdered. This wasn't random gang violence. This was personal. For a moment, rage threatened to consume her completely. She wanted to find Marcus Doyle and make him pay for what he had done to her family. She wanted to drag Leonard Voss out of his office and beat the truth out of him. But she was a Marine. Marines didn't act on emotion. They planned. We need Marcus alive, she said finally. He's the only one who can connect the murder to Voss and whoever else is involved. Nathan nodded approvingly. Smart thinking. Dead men can't testify. Alicia wiped her face and straightened her shoulders. The grief would come later. Right now, she had work to do. Call Dana, she told Samuel. Tell her we're ready to move on Elena Ruiz. And we need to set up that sting operation. Tonight? Grace asked. Alicia looked at her father's photo one last time, then folded it carefully and put it in her pocket. Tonight. The safe house sat above Murphy's Pharmacy on Elm Street, a narrow building squeezed between a laundromat and a check-cashing store. The pharmacy had been closed for months, but the upstairs apartment remained furnished and clean. Dana had used it before for witness protection. Samuel parked his unmarked patrol car in the alley behind the building. Elena Ruiz sat in the passenger seat, clutching her son Miguel's hand. The boy was 12, all sharp elbows and worried eyes. He kept glancing at his mother's bruised face. "It's temporary," Samuel said gently, "just until we can get you into federal protection." Elena nodded, but her grip on Miguel's hand didn't loosen. "How long?" "A few days, maybe a week." Dana emerged from the rear entrance, checking the street carefully before waving them forward. She wore a bulletproof vest under her FBI windbreaker and kept one hand near her service weapon. "Clear," she called softly. Samuel helped Elena and Miguel from the car. They moved quickly up the narrow staircase to the apartment. Dana had already swept the rooms twice. 2 bedrooms, a small kitchen, bars on all the windows, a landline phone with a direct connection to the FBI field office. "You'll be safe here," Dana told Elena as she checked the locks. 2 agents will be posted across the street. Samuel will patrol the area every hour. Elena sat on the small couch, still holding her son. "What happens next?" "Tomorrow morning, you testify before a federal judge," Dana explained. "We record everything. Then you disappear into witness protection until the trials are over." Miguel spoke for the first time. "What about school?" Dana smiled at him. "New school, new names, new life, but your mom will be safe." Across the city, Alicia crouched on a fire escape 6 blocks away, watching the safe house through binoculars. Nathan was positioned on a rooftop 2 streets over, monitoring radio traffic and surrounding approaches. Everything looked normal. No motorcycles, no suspicious vehicles, no iron vultures. Alicia's phone buzzed. Samuel's voice came through her earpiece. "Eagle 1, nest is secure. Package is settled." "Copy," Alicia replied. Overwatch continuing. An hour passed. Elena made dinner for Miguel while Dana reviewed her testimony notes. Samuel completed his second patrol loop without incident. Nathan reported clear frequencies on all gang radio channels. Alicia allowed herself to relax slightly. Maybe they had finally gotten ahead of Marcus and his crew. Her phone rang. Dana's voice was calm and professional. "We got the federal authorization. Judge Morrison will hear Elena's testimony at 9 tomorrow morning. Full witness protection approved." "Outstanding," Alicia said. "Any word from the techs?" "Better than word." They cracked the chop shop manifest completely. The next shipment is scheduled for Thursday night at Rivergate's old container yard. 12 stolen luxury cars, plus whatever else Marcus is smuggling. Alicia felt genuine hope for the first time in weeks. "So, we have witnesses, financial records, and a live intercept opportunity. Plus one more gift from Officer Ortiz," Dana continued. "He found the patrol garage access log. Leonard Voss's administrative aide used her keycard to enter evidence storage at 11:47 p.m. the night your body cam footage disappeared. The pieces were falling into place. Elena's testimony would expose the protection racket. The financial records tied Marcus to Rivergate Shipping. The access logs proved police corruption reached Deputy Chief Voss himself. And Thursday's intercept would catch the gang in the act. Alicia climbed onto the pharmacy's roof, looking out over the city lights. For one precious moment, she let herself believe they might actually win, that Marcus Doyle's empire was beginning to crack, that her father's murder would finally be avenged. Down below, Elena was tucking Miguel into bed, while Dana checked the windows one final time. Samuel's patrol car moved slowly through the surrounding streets. Nathan maintained his overwatch position, scanning for threats. Everything felt secure, professional, under control. Alicia's phone rang again. Grace Holloway's voice was sharp with panic. "Alicia, get out of there now. Someone leaked the address. I'm monitoring police scanner traffic, and there's chatter about a hit on Elm Street. They're coming." Alicia grabbed her binoculars and swept the surrounding area. Nothing yet, but Grace was never wrong about this kind of intelligence. "How long?" Alicia asked, already moving toward the fire escape. "Minutes, maybe less." Alicia sprinted toward the stairwell, keying her radio as the first sound of motorcycle engines echoed from the eastern approach. Then gunfire erupted outside. The first motorcycle engine roared around the corner like a war cry. Then another. Then the deep rumble of trucks. Alicia keyed her radio while sprinting down the fire escape. All units, nest is compromised. Repeat, nest is compromised. Samuel's voice crackled through the static. Multiple vehicles moving in from both directions. I count 6 bikes, 2 trucks. Get Elena and Miguel out the back, Alicia ordered, dropping to street level. Dana, you copy? Moving them now, Dana replied. But the Iron Vultures had planned this perfectly. As Alicia reached the apartment building's rear alley, she saw Marcus Doyle's massive frame climbing from a pickup truck that blocked the only exit route. 3 bikers flanked him, assault rifles already raised. This wasn't intimidation, this was execution. The first shots shattered the safe house windows above. Glass rained down as Alicia pressed herself against the building's brick wall. Inside, she could hear Dana shouting orders and Miguel crying. Smoke canisters crashed through the broken windows. Thick gray haze began pouring from the second floor. They're gassing us out, Dana's voice came through the radio, distorted by coughing. Alicia drew her service weapon and moved toward the building's front entrance. Samuel's patrol car sat empty in the middle of the street, doors hanging open. Where was he? She found out when gunfire erupted from the pharmacy across the street. Samuel was pinned behind his vehicle, returning fire at 2 bikers who had taken position behind a van. His aim was steady and professional, but he was outnumbered. Samuel, fall back to the building, Alicia radioed. Negative. They'll rush the entrance. More smoke poured from the second-floor windows. Alicia could hear Dana and Elena coughing violently inside the stairwell. The toxic haze was getting thicker. She made her choice. Alicia sprinted across the street in a low crouch, using Samuel's patrol car for cover. The young officer looked relieved to see backup arriving. 2 more trucks just pulled up on Elm, he reported. They've got the whole block surrounded. We hold them here, Alicia said. Dana's getting Elena out the back. But even as she spoke, she knew something was wrong. The bikers weren't advancing. They were just maintaining position, keeping up steady, suppressing fire, like they were waiting for something. The answer came when orange flames suddenly licked up from the pharmacy's ground floor. Someone had set the building on fire. The evidence cache, Samuel said, horror in his voice. Everything Grace stored there. Alicia watched months of investigation burn. Financial records, gang photographs, witness statements, all of it turning to ash and smoke. Her radio crackled with Dana's desperate voice. Back exit is blocked. We're trapped on the second floor. Through the smoke-filled windows, Alicia could see shapes moving inside the apartment. Dana was trying to shepherd Elena and Miguel toward the stairwell, but the toxic haze was too thick. I'm coming up, Alicia told Samuel. Keep them pinned down. She was halfway to the building entrance when she heard Nathan's truck engine roaring up the street. The old Marine's pickup slammed into the van, blocking the intersection, metal screaming against metal as he rammed through the roadblock. Back door is clear, Nathan's voice boomed through the radio. Get them out now. Alicia charged into the smoke-filled stairwell, her Marine training taking over. She pulled her shirt over her mouth and nose, staying low beneath the worst of the toxic cloud. The wooden steps creaked under her weight as she climbed toward the second floor. Dana, where are you? She called. Bedroom. Miguel's passed out from the smoke. Alicia found them huddled against the far wall. Elena was holding her unconscious son, while Dana kept watch at the window. The smoke was so thick, Alicia could barely see 3 feet ahead. We go now, Alicia said. Single file. I take point. She lifted Miguel's limp form and headed back toward the stairwell. The boy was breathing but unconscious. Behind her, Dana helped Elena navigate through the choking haze. They were almost to the first floor when gunfire erupted outside. Different weapons this time, heavier caliber. Samuel's in trouble, Dana said. Through the front windows, Alicia could see muzzle flashes from multiple positions. Samuel was still behind his patrol car, but now he was taking fire from 3 directions. The young officer was fighting bravely, but he was completely surrounded. Get Elena to Nathan's truck, Alicia ordered. I'm getting Samuel. But before she could move, a new sound cut through the chaos. Police sirens, multiple units responding fast. For one hopeful second, Alicia thought backup was arriving. Then she saw Detective Rick Morrison climbing from the lead patrol car, his service weapon drawn. But instead of advancing on the iron vultures, he was aiming at Samuel. "Officer Ortiz," Morrison called out. "Drop your weapon and surrender." Samuel's confused voice came through the radio. "What? Morrison? The gang members are right there. You're under arrest for conspiracy and assault on peaceful citizens," Morrison announced loud enough for everyone to hear. That's when Alicia understood the full scope of the trap. This wasn't just an attack on the safe house. This was a coordinated frame job, with corrupt officers providing cover for the iron vultures. Samuel hesitated for one fatal second, trying to process Morrison's betrayal. Rafe Kellen's rifle shot caught the young officer in the chest. Samuel dropped behind his patrol car, his radio going silent. "No," Elena screamed from behind Alicia. The sound of her voice carried across the street. Marcus Doyle's head snapped toward the apartment building, his eyes locking onto the broken windows where they were hiding. "There she is," Marcus roared. "Second floor, east window. Take her alive." 4 bikers immediately broke from their positions and charged toward the building entrance. Alicia shoved Elena back from the window. "Move! Move! Now!" They stumbled through the smoke toward the rear stairwell. Miguel was starting to wake up in Alicia's arms, coughing and whimpering. Dana provided rear security, her weapon drawn. Nathan's truck was still running in the back alley, passenger door hanging open. "Almost there," Alicia said. They burst through the rear exit into the cold night air. Nathan's truck sat 20 feet away, exhaust visible in the freezing air. Safety was within reach. But Rafe Kellen was waiting behind Nathan's truck. The enforcer grabbed Elena before anyone could react, his massive arm wrapping around her throat. His other hand pressed a knife against her ribs. "Drop the weapons, or I cut her open right here," he snarled. Dana's pistol was already aimed at his head. "Let her go." "You think I'm scared of some FBI cop?" Rafe laughed. "Marcus wants her alive, but he didn't say anything about perfect condition." Behind them, heavy footsteps pounded up the rear stairwell. More iron vultures were seconds away from reaching the back exit. Alicia made the only choice she could. She dove forward, rolling beneath Rafe's knife while driving her shoulder into his knees. The enforcer stumbled, his grip on Elena loosening just enough for her to twist free. But the moment of distraction cost them everything. 2 more bikers burst through the back door. Dana spun to engage them, gunfire erupting in the narrow alley. In the chaos, another iron vulture grabbed Elena from behind and dragged her toward a waiting motorcycle. "Elena!" Miguel screamed, now fully awake in Alicia's arms. Nathan's truck engine suddenly roared to life. The old Marine was ramming through another roadblock, trying to reach them, but he was too far away. Elena disappeared into the night on the back of a motorcycle, her terrified face the last thing Alicia saw before smoke grenades exploded around Nathan's truck. By the time the smoke cleared, half the block was on fire. Samuel Ortiz lay dead beside his patrol car. The evidence cache was completely destroyed, and Elena Ruiz was gone. News vans were already arriving, their bright lights cutting through the smoke and flames. Reporters began broadcasting live from the scene, describing the violent police raid gone wrong that had left 1 officer dead and multiple civilians missing. Detective Morrison stood before the cameras, his face grim with practiced sorrow. "This tragic incident highlights the dangers of rogue officers operating outside proper channels," he announced. "Sergeant Brooks's unauthorized activities have resulted in the death of a fellow officer and put innocent lives at risk." Alicia crouched in Nathan's truck, holding Miguel close while watching her reputation burn along with the evidence. Everything they had built was crashing down. The boy looked up at her with tear-filled eyes. "Where's my mom?" Alicia had no answer. 3 hours later, she sat on a folding chair in the basement of an abandoned church on the city's south side. Nathan had brought her here after they escaped the chaos. Her uniform was torn and stained with ash. Her hands were cut from diving through broken glass. Her face was streaked with soot and dried blood. Miguel slept on a cot nearby, exhausted from crying. Dana paced the small room, coordinating with federal agents who were trying to salvage what remained of their operation. "Every news station is running the same story," Dana reported quietly. "Corrupt police sergeant leads violent raid that kills honest officer and endangers innocent families." Alicia stared at her hands. Samuel Ortiz was dead because he had trusted her. Elena Ruiz was in the hands of monsters because she had promised safety. The evidence that could have brought down Marcus Doyle's empire was ash. She had failed everyone who had counted on her. The basement was cold and silent except for Miguel's soft breathing and the distant sound of sirens still echoing across the city. Dawn was coming, but all Alicia could see was darkness. The basement of the abandoned church felt like a war room before dawn. Folding tables held scattered maps, cell phones, and cold coffee cups. Everyone moved with the careful quiet of people who knew death was hunting them. Alicia sat on a metal chair, staring at the city map spread before her. Red circles marked Iron Vulture territories. Black X's showed where witnesses had disappeared. Blue lines traced the routes Marcus's men used to move drugs and money through the Port District. Miguel slept on a cot in the corner, wrapped in Nathan's marine jacket. The boy had cried himself to exhaustion hours ago, asking when his mother was coming home. Alicia still had no answer. Dana paced near the small basement window, her federal badge reflecting the light from a single bare bulb. She spoke quietly into her secure phone, coordinating with agents who were trying to rebuild their shattered operation from scratch. Grace Holloway sat at another folding table, typing rapidly on her laptop. The journalist had spent the night calling sources, tracking down leads, and fighting to keep the real story alive, while Morrison's lies dominated every news channel. Nathan leaned against the concrete wall, his weathered face showing the strain of the longest night any of them had endured. His truck was hidden 3 blocks away, license plates changed, and emergency supplies loaded in the back. Heavy footsteps echoed down the basement stairs. Everyone tensed. Hands moved toward weapons. In the past 12 hours they had learned that nowhere was truly safe. Captain Miriam Cole appeared at the bottom of the steps. Alicia stood immediately, her body coiled for action. Cole could be bringing backup. This could be the moment their hiding place became another trap. But Cole raised both hands, showing empty palms. "I'm alone." "How did you find us?" Dana demanded, her weapon partially drawn. "Nathan called me," Cole said simply, "and I came because Deputy Chief Voss spent 2 hours tonight ordering me to stop looking for the truth about Samuel Ortiz." The captain's uniform was wrinkled. Her usually perfect appearance showed signs of a sleepless night spent fighting battles inside the department. Dark circles under her eyes told the story of someone who had finally seen how deep the corruption ran. "Voss wants Samuel's death blamed on your reckless leadership, Alicia," Cole continued. "He's already written the official report. Officer Samuel Ortiz died because Sergeant Brooks ignored protocol and led him into a gang ambush." Alicia's hands clenched into fists. "Samuel died because someone leaked our operation to Marcus Doyle. Someone inside the department." "I know." Cole's voice was flat with controlled anger. "And that someone is Deputy Chief Leonard Voss." The basement fell silent except for the distant rumble of garbage trucks beginning their morning routes. Even Miguel stirred in his sleep, sensing the tension in the room. Cole stepped closer to the folding tables covered with evidence and maps. "I've been captain for 8 years. I thought I knew my department. I was wrong." She pulled a manila folder from inside her jacket and placed it on the table. "Dispatch records from last night. The real ones, before they were altered. They show someone with Voss's access codes redirected 3 patrol units away from your location 30 minutes before the attack." Dana moved closer, studying the documents. "This proves internal coordination. It proves Voss helped set up the ambush that killed Samuel," Cole said. "But it won't bring him down unless we can connect him directly to Marcus Doyle's organization." Grace looked up from her laptop screen. "Maybe we don't need to prove the connection. Maybe we can force them to expose it themselves." Everyone turned toward the journalist. She had the expression of someone who had just discovered something important. "I've been tracking Pike's schedule," Grace explained. "The councilman has a private fundraiser tomorrow night. Very exclusive, very secretive. But I have a source at the catering company." She turned her laptop so everyone could see the screen. "Pike's making an unscheduled stop before the fundraiser. Rivergate Shipping, terminal area. My source at the docks confirmed something else." Grace paused, making sure she had everyone's attention. "Elena Ruiz is being held at the abandoned Terminal 9 warehouse. They're keeping her there until a boat can move her out of the city permanently. Alicia felt her pulse quicken. Elena was alive. She was still in the city. There was still time to save her. "How solid is your source?" Dana asked. "Solid enough," Grace replied. "Jimmy Torres has worked the docks for 20 years. He knows which terminals are supposed to be empty and which ones aren't. He saw Iron Vulture motorcycles moving in and out of Terminal 9 all night. Nathan studied the port area map, his finger tracing possible approach routes. Terminal 9 is isolated, built on a pier that extends into the harbor. Only one road in and out, which makes it a perfect trap," Dana said grimly. "If Marcus has Elena there, he'll have every approach covered." Alicia stood and walked to the window. The first hint of dawn was appearing on the horizon, painting the sky pale gray. Somewhere across the city, Elena Ruiz was praying someone would come for her. Samuel Ortiz was dead because he had trusted the wrong people. Miguel was sleeping in a church basement because his mother had tried to tell the truth. She turned back to face the others. "We're going to get her back." "Alicia," Dana said carefully, "I can't launch an official raid. If we expose our remaining evidence now, before we have Marcus and his protection network contained, they'll destroy everything and disappear. Then we don't launch an official raid." Nathan straightened against the wall. He recognized something in Alicia's voice, something from their Marine days. "What are you thinking?" he asked. Alicia moved to the map table, studying the Port District layout. "Marcus is expecting us to come for Elena. He's probably got 50 bikers positioned around Terminal 9, ready for a direct assault." She traced her finger along the waterfront roads. "But Marcus has one weakness, his ego. He can't resist a chance to prove he's smarter than everyone else." "Keep talking," Cole said. "We give him what he wants to see. A federal evidence convoy moving the final proof that can destroy his empire." The ledger Grace found. The backup files from the safe house. Samuel's dispatch records showing internal corruption. Dana frowned. "That's our remaining evidence. If Marcus intercepts it, he won't intercept the real evidence," Alicia interrupted. "He'll intercept a decoy." The basement fell quiet again as everyone processed what she was suggesting. "A marine deception operation," Nathan said slowly. "Make him commit his forces to the wrong target." "Exactly. We leak that the evidence is being moved by armored SUV convoy to the federal courthouse. Marcus mobilizes every biker he has to stop it. While he's attacking the decoy, we hit Terminal 9 with a small team." Grace looked up from her laptop. "How do we guarantee Marcus takes the bait?" "Because we make sure he hears about it from someone he trusts," Alicia replied. "Someone inside the department who's been feeding him information." Cole understood immediately. "Voss. We feed false intelligence through Voss's communication channels. Let him think he's warning Marcus about the convoy. Marcus commits everything to stopping the evidence from reaching court." Dana nodded slowly. "While his main force attacks the decoy, Terminal 9 becomes vulnerable." "How vulnerable?" Nathan asked. Alicia studied the waterfront map again. "Skeleton crew, maybe 10 bikers maximum. Terminal 9 is isolated, but that works both ways. Once we're inside, Marcus can't send reinforcements without abandoning his attack on the convoy. And when Marcus realizes he's been deceived, he'll come for us personally, angry, desperate, making mistakes." The room was silent for a long moment. Everyone understood what Alicia was proposing. A direct confrontation with Marcus Doyle and his remaining loyalists. No backup, no official support. Win or die. Captain Cole was the first to speak. "I'll coordinate the false intelligence leak through Voss. I'll drive the decoy convoy," Nathan said immediately. Dana checked her watch. "I can have federal agents positioned to intercept Marcus's people when they attack the convoy. But you're right. I can't provide official support for Terminal 9. "I don't need official support," Alicia said. "I need Elena Ruiz to go home to her son." Grace closed her laptop. "I'll be positioned to document whatever happens. The public needs to see the truth." They spent the next hour planning every detail: routes, timing, communication protocols, emergency extraction procedures. It felt like preparing for a combat mission, because that's exactly what it was. As the sun began rising through the small basement window, Alicia strapped on borrowed body armor. The Kevlar vest was too large, designed for a bigger officer, but it would have to do. She checked her service weapon one final time, then looked over at Miguel's sleeping form. The boy deserved to wake up in a world where his mother was safe. "Samuel," she whispered to the empty air. Outside, Nathan's truck engine rumbled to life. The decoy convoy was ready. The trap was set. Time to find out if an ex-Marine could outfight an entire motorcycle gang. Nathan's knuckles were white on the steering wheel as morning traffic thickened along the waterfront district. The decoy SUV's engine hummed beneath him, a steady sound that reminded him of convoy runs in places where mistakes meant death. Behind him, Captain Cole's unmarked sedan stayed close. Two more unmarked cars flanked them on either side. The false intelligence had worked perfectly. Through his rearview mirror, Nathan watched the first motorcycle appear on the access ramp behind them. Then another. Within seconds, a dozen Iron Vulture's bikes poured onto the waterfront road like angry wasps. "Contact rear," he radioed to Cole. "Multiple bikes closing fast." "Copy that?" Cole's voice crackled back. "Formation Alpha. Do not engage unless fired upon." Nathan pressed the accelerator. The SUV surged forward, weaving between early morning delivery trucks and fish market vendors setting up their stalls. The bikers split into attack formation, 3 groups moving to surround the convoy. Marcus Doyle's voice boomed over the wind as he pulled alongside the lead unmarked car on his massive Harley. "Pull over right now, or we start shooting." One of Cole's officers responded by accelerating hard, forcing Marcus to swerve toward the guardrail. The biker recovered quickly, his face twisted with rage beneath his helmet. "All units, they're not stopping," Marcus shouted to his gang. "Take out their tires." The chase erupted into chaos. Motorcycles wove between the convoy vehicles like predators testing their prey. Nathan yanked the wheel left as a biker tried to ram his rear quarter panel. The SUV's bumper clipped a motorcycle's rear wheel, sending the rider tumbling across wet pavement. "Bridge approach ahead," Cole warned over the radio. "Road gets narrow." Nathan could see it through the morning mist. The old harbor bridge rose ahead of them, its approach slick with moisture from the bay. 2 lanes became one in a construction zone that would force the convoy into single file. Perfect ambush terrain. "They're boxing us in," one of Cole's officers reported. 6 bikes front, 8 rear. Marcus pulled ahead of the convoy, then slowed deliberately, forcing Nathan to brake hard. Behind them, more bikers closed the gap, trapping the federal vehicles between 2 groups of Iron Vultures. Nathan's training kicked in. Never let the enemy choose the battlefield. He yanked the wheel hard right, jumping the SUV onto the sidewalk, past a row of parked fish vendor trucks. Sparks flew as the bumper scraped a concrete barrier, but the vehicle stayed upright. Cole's cars followed, maintaining formation despite the tight maneuvering. "What are you doing?" Marcus screamed, his bike engine roaring as he tried to follow. Nathan smiled grimly. "Marine Corps driving school idiot." The SUV bounced back onto the roadway just as they reached the bridge approach. Marcus's bikes were scattered now, some stuck behind the vendor trucks, others forced to navigate around startled pedestrians diving for cover. But Marcus wasn't finished. The gang leader accelerated hard, pulling alongside Nathan's window with murder in his eyes. "Where is she?" he bellowed. "Where's that cop?" Nathan kept his eyes on the road. The longer Marcus stayed focused on this convoy, the better Alicia's chances at Terminal 9. "Come on!" Marcus shouted, pounding on the SUV's window. "Fight me, you coward!" Instead, Nathan radioed Cole. "Package delivery in 60 seconds. Roger, FBI units standing by." Up ahead, Nathan could see the federal checkpoint they'd arranged. 3 black SUVs waited in formation, with agents in tactical gear ready to intercept Marcus's gang the moment they attacked the decoy convoy. Marcus raised something in his hand, a pistol. "All units, shots fired." Cole's voice cut through the static. The biker leader emptied his clip into the SUV's passenger side windows. Bulletproof glass spiderwebbed, but held. Nathan kept driving, even as more bikers opened fire from both sides of the convoy. This was exactly what they'd hoped for. Marcus was committing everything to stopping this convoy, convinced that Alicia and the evidence were inside Nathan's SUV. 3 miles away, Terminal 9 stood nearly empty. Dana's sedan crept through the fenced access road leading to the terminal compound. Alicia sat in the passenger seat, studying the massive warehouse through binoculars. "I count 4 bikes outside," she whispered. "Maybe 6 guards total." "Marcus took the bait," Dana confirmed, listening to radio chatter from Nathan's pursuit. Sounds like he committed at least 20 bikers to stopping that convoy. Alicia lowered the binoculars. The terminal looked exactly like the intelligence photos. A sprawling warehouse complex built on concrete pilings over the bay water, multiple loading docks, shipping containers stacked like metal building blocks. And somewhere inside, Elena Ruiz was waiting for rescue or death. "Remember," Dana said as they parked behind a stack of containers, "once we go in, there's no federal backup. Officially, I'm not here. Understood?" Alicia checked her service weapon one final time. 17 rounds plus 1 in the chamber, 3 spare magazines. It would have to be enough. They moved through the container yard in tactical formation, using the metal boxes for cover. The morning mist hung thick over the water, muffling sound and reducing visibility. Perfect conditions for a surprise assault. That's when Alicia spotted him. Rafe Kellen stood guard near the warehouse's side entrance, very much alive despite the reports that claimed he'd been killed in earlier confrontations. The scarred enforcer was Marcus's most trusted lieutenant. His presence here meant the Iron Vulture's leader had been smarter than they'd hoped. He split his force, Alicia whispered to Dana. Left his best people guarding Elena. How many? Alicia studied the building more carefully. Movement in the windows, shadows near the loading docks. At least 8, maybe 10. Dana checked her equipment. I can kill the power from the electrical junction box. Plunge the whole terminal into darkness. Do it, but wait for my signal. Alicia began moving toward the side entrance where Rafe stood smoking a cigarette. The enforcer looked relaxed, confident that Marcus's diversionary convoy chase would keep any rescue attempt away from Terminal 9. He was about to learn how wrong he was. Alicia reached the corner of the building just as her radio crackled with Nathan's voice. "Package delivered. Federal units have engaged the pursuit group." That meant Marcus was fully committed to attacking the decoy. No turning back now. She keyed her radio twice, the signal for Dana to cut the power. The entire terminal complex plunged into darkness. Emergency alarms began wailing immediately. Water lapped against the concrete pilings below the building, echoing through the sudden blackness like the sound of approaching death. From deeper inside the warehouse, Elena Ruiz screamed. Boots thundered across metal flooring, running toward Alicia's position through the dark. The final battle was about to begin. Inside the darkened warehouse, emergency lighting cast eerie red shadows across towering stacks of shipping crates. Alicia moved between the metal containers like a hunter, her service weapon ready but holstered. The confined space would make gunfire too dangerous with Elena somewhere nearby. Chains hung from overhead cranes, swaying in the darkness like steel snakes. The air smelled of rust, diesel fuel, and fear. Above her, Dana's boots moved carefully across a metal catwalk that ran the length of the warehouse. The FBI agent had positioned herself to cover the upper level, where several Iron Vulture's gunmen were scrambling through the blackout. "Contact left!" Dana's voice echoed through the warehouse as muzzle flashes lit up the catwalk level. Alicia kept moving toward the sounds coming from the back office area, where Elena's screams had originated. Her eyes had adjusted to the red emergency lighting, giving her the advantage over panicked bikers stumbling through unfamiliar territory. That's when Rafe Kellen materialized from behind a forklift with 2 other enforcers flanking him. "There's the cop!" Rafe snarled, his scarred face twisted with rage. "Marcus said you were mine, if you showed up." The 3 men rushed her simultaneously, trying to use their numbers in the cramped space between shipping containers. Rafe led the charge with a hunting knife, while his companions swung metal pipes they'd grabbed from a maintenance cart. Alicia didn't retreat. Instead, she stepped forward into their attack, using the narrow corridor like a funnel. The first enforcer swung his pipe in a wild arc that would have crushed her skull if it connected. She ducked under the swing and drove her shoulder into his midsection, using his momentum to slam him backward into the sharp corner of a wooden crate. His ribs cracked with an audible snap. The second attacker tried to grab her from behind, but Alicia twisted away and caught his extended arm in one of the hanging chains. She yanked the chain tight, trapping his wrist in the metal loop while he screamed and tried to pull free. That left Rafe. The scarred enforcer had expected to overwhelm her with his size and experience. Instead, he found himself facing a woman who moved like controlled violence, every motion precise and devastating. Alicia hit him with 3 sharp body shots that drove the air from his lungs. Left hook to the ribs, right cross to the solar plexus. Another left that folded him forward, gasping. "You're nothing," she said quietly, watching his swagger evaporate. "Just another bully who never learned to fight someone who hits back." Above them, Dana's gunfire continued as she held off the bikers trying to reach the catwalk stairs. Spent brass cases rang against metal flooring like deadly rain. Nathan's voice crackled through Alicia's radio. "Brooks? Marcus broke off from the chase. He's heading your way with at least 6 bikes." Alicia grabbed Rafe by his leather vest and drove her knee into his stomach. He doubled over, retching onto the concrete floor. The enforcer who'd been trapped in the chain had finally worked himself free, but stood clutching his mangled wrist, no longer interested in fighting. She found Elena tied to a chair in the shipping office at the rear of the warehouse. The auto shop owner looked terrified but alert, her eyes wide, as Alicia cut through the plastic zip ties with her tactical knife. "Can you walk?" Alicia asked. "Yes," Elena gasped. "They said they were going to kill me when Marcus got back." "Not happening." Alicia keyed her radio. "Dana, get Elena out through the west loading bay." "Now!" "Copy that." Behind them, Rafe had recovered enough to grab a crowbar from a tool cart. Blood ran from his split lip as he raised the weapon with shaking hands. "I'm not done with you, cop," he wheezed. "Yeah, you are." Alicia stepped inside his swing, caught his wrist, and twisted until the crowbar clattered to the floor. Then she drove him backward through the office's glass wall. The window exploded in a shower of sparkling fragments as Rafe crashed through and hit the concrete unconscious. Outside the warehouse, motorcycle engines roared to life in the parking area. The main loading doors exploded inward as Marcus Doyle smashed through them on his chopper, followed by his remaining men. The warehouse floor erupted as Marcus Doyle's chopper roared through the shattered loading doors. His massive frame dominated the bike, leather jacket torn from the chase, blood streaking his face from where Nathan's shots had grazed him. The remaining iron vultures followed behind, 6 desperate men with nothing left to lose. Fire alarms screamed overhead. Morning light sliced through broken windows, casting sharp shadows across the concrete as smoke detectors triggered by gunpowder filled the air with piercing wails. Marcus killed his engine and stepped off the bike, his boots crunching on broken glass. His eyes locked onto Alicia through the maze of shipping containers and machinery. "There she is," he growled, pulling a steel chain from his belt. "The cop who thinks she can destroy everything I built." The other bikers spread out, trying to surround her position near the office area. But their movements were panicked, desperate. These weren't the confident predators who'd cornered her in that alley months ago. "It's over, Marcus," Alicia called out, keeping a steel support beam between them. "Your whole network is finished." Marcus laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the warehouse walls. "You still don't get it, do you? This isn't about the gang. This never was." He stepped closer, swinging the chain in lazy circles. "Your daddy saw too much at Rivergate, asking questions about late-night shipments, following trucks he wasn't supposed to follow." Alicia's jaw tightened. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying Curtis Brooks was a problem that needed solving." Marcus grinned, showing blood-stained teeth. "Deputy Chief Voss paid good money to make that problem disappear, made it look like an accident at the docks. Your old man never saw it coming." The confession hit her like a physical blow. Years of wondering, years of accepting that her father had simply fallen, years of believing it was random tragedy. "And you were supposed to vanish the same way," Marcus continued, advancing between 2 shipping containers. "Unstable cop, tragic suicide, another Brooks who couldn't handle the pressure." The truth only sharpened Alicia's focus. The grief would come later. Right now, justice needed to be served. Marcus rushed her with the chain whipping through the air. Alicia rolled behind a forklift as the heavy links cracked against metal where her head had been. The big man followed, using his mass to flip the forklift aside like it was cardboard. She came up swinging, landing 2 quick body shots that barely moved him. Marcus backhanded her across the face, sending her stumbling into a stack of wooden crates. Blood filled her mouth. 20 years I've controlled this city," Marcus snarled, grabbing her by the collar and hurling her toward a concrete support pillar. No badge-wearing hero is going to change that. Alicia twisted as she hit the pillar, absorbing the impact on her shoulder instead of her spine. Pain exploded down her arm, but she kept moving. Marcus charged again, and she dropped low, sweeping his legs. The massive biker crashed to the concrete, but rolled back to his feet with surprising agility. Around them, the sound of approaching sirens grew louder. Captain Cole's backup units were finally breaching the terminal perimeter. Marcus pulled a hunting knife from his boot. "Time to finish what I started in that alley." He slashed at her face, but Alicia leaned back, feeling the blade whistle past her nose. She grabbed his extended wrist and drove her knee into his elbow joint. Marcus roared in pain but didn't drop the weapon. The fight became brutal and personal. Marcus used his size advantage, slamming her into crates and concrete barriers. But Alicia survived through discipline, breaking his rhythm, targeting pressure points, using angles instead of matching his raw strength. Emergency lights painted Terminal 9 in alternating washes of red and blue as dawn broke over the industrial waterfront. Paramedics worked methodically around the warehouse entrance, treating cuts and checking for concussions, while television crews pressed against yellow tape, their cameras capturing every angle of the scene that would dominate evening news across the state. Alicia sat on the bumper of an ambulance, wincing as a medic cleaned the gash above her left eye. Her uniform was torn and blood-stained, her knuckles swollen from the fight with Marcus. But her eyes remained sharp, watching FBI agents escort handcuffed suspects toward unmarked vehicles. 3 stitches, the medic announced, applying a bandage. "You'll need to follow up with your doctor in a week." Agent Dana Whitaker approached, her federal badge gleaming under the emergency lights. Television reporters immediately surged forward with microphones and questions, but she raised her hand for silence. "This morning's arrests represent the conclusion of an 18-month federal investigation into organized crime corruption," Dana announced, her voice carrying across the terminal grounds. "Deputy Chief Leonard Voss is in federal custody on charges of racketeering, evidence tampering, and conspiracy to commit murder. City Councilman Everett Pike faces identical charges, plus money laundering and extortion." Camera operators jostled for position as Dana continued. 7 additional police officers have been arrested for accepting bribes and obstructing justice. Marcus Doyle and 12 members of the Iron Vultures motorcycle gang face federal organized crime charges, carrying mandatory life sentences. A reporter shouted a question about the scope of the corruption, but Dana held up a thick folder of documents. "Evidence recovered during this operation proves these defendants operated a criminal enterprise that controlled illegal activities across 3 districts for over 15 years. They used badge numbers and city contracts to launder millions while terrorizing honest citizens." Near the terminal entrance, Elena Ruiz stood with FBI victim advocates, finally giving the statement she had been too frightened to provide months earlier. Her voice carried clearly in the morning air as she described years of extortion payments and threats against her family. "They told us the police wouldn't help," Elena said, her hands steady now despite everything she had endured. "They said nobody cared about our neighborhood, but Sergeant Brooks never stopped fighting for us." Dana nodded toward the arrest area where suspects waited in federal transport vehicles. "Officer Samuel Ortiz gave his life, refusing to compromise his oath. His personnel files and dispatch records provided crucial evidence proving the systematic manipulation of patrol routes and evidence procedures." The questions from reporters grew more intense, but Dana remained focused on facts rather than speculation. "This investigation proves that corruption cannot survive transparency. Every defendant will face federal prosecution without plea negotiations." Captain Miriam Cole emerged from the terminal building, her expression grim but satisfied. She had spent the night coordinating with federal agents and ensuring every honest officer understood their department was being cleaned from top to bottom. Alicia stood as Cole approached, the morning sun catching the badge pinned to her damaged uniform. Around them, the chaos of arrests and evidence collection continued. But something fundamental had shifted. The fear that had controlled this neighborhood for years was breaking apart with every handcuffed suspect placed in federal custody. "The files Nathan recovered from Marcus's phone," Cole said quietly. "They included communications about your father's death. Marcus confessed to federal agents that Curtis Brooks was murdered on direct orders from Voss. Alicia closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of years of uncertainty finally lifting. Her father hadn't died from carelessness or bad luck. He had died because he was too honest to ignore criminal activity at the docks. The district attorney is reopening the case as a homicide investigation, Cole continued. After 20 years, Curtis Brooks will finally get justice. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like to support my channel and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. On the screen, I have picked 2 special stories just for you. Have a wonderful day.